The Pieces Lie Where They Fell by Evil Humor. Edited and co-authored by Anon E. Mouse Jr. Read for you by My Name is R. Chapter 44. Page Turner, Nightblade, Windbreaker, Vix Lei, Xvital, and Gentle Step. Part 1. Page Turner. It was odd to be back in Canterlot after being away for so long. The sound and smells of the bustling city were almost overwhelming her, but at the same time, it felt so natural and right. She felt like she was home. She could also feel both the edges of the minds of her hive's changelings nearby, and the rest of the group in the hive mind she'd created for them. Such a mental link was not easy to pull off with non-changelings, but she had managed. However, some of them were still not quite used to communicating through the link. "Man, this is still very weird," Vix Lei yelled again, with Paige doing her best not to show her wince while she was walking around the crowd waiting to greet Tizok and the rest of the host from the Quanmitzel Kingdom. "Not so loud," she chided the Minotaur, who was standing near the back of the crowd and leaning against a building. She could feel the rest of the group begin to turn their heads to them, and she had to hold back a sigh coming from both her lips and her mind. "Don't turn around to look at each other when you use the hive mind." "Well, sorry, Paige, but I agree with her. This is still very weird," Windbreaker snarked at her through the hive mind. Surprisingly coherent, despite having fallen off the wagon and spent the day before drinking with Vital. The Griffin was pretending to do some janitor work, pushing a broom around. Rolling her eyes and letting out an internal snort while she kept her face the same, she knew she could count on Rex and Nye. "I can't help but agree with Wind," Knight thought with a grumble, standing in the crowd too, a fair distance away from her. He was wearing a cloak to hide his wings and his sword, and glasses to hide his scar. "Having magic that lets me fly is enough. I don't need to have this thing that feels like it is pushing on the side of my head." Paige couldn't help herself from frowning outwardly, and had to remind herself that she couldn't keep on expecting Knight to agree with her on everything anymore. It wasn't fair to him, no matter how annoying it was. "I must admit that this whole process is still a bit unsettling, despite how much we've practiced, Page Turner." Rex, her last hope for some reasonable backup from the group, said. "Still, I hope you are doing well with all of this, Vital." Rex directed his thoughts towards the Owizodalis. Unsurprisingly, the Diamond Dog had grasped onto the concept faster, and was able to act like a drone with a few months' practice under their belt. There was a delay before Paige felt a "yeah" from Vital, along with some grumbling that she couldn't keep to herself. Vital was stuck with the rest of Tizok's guards, pretending to be one, as it was the only way she could blend in, and partly due to Tizok wishing her to be safe with his personal soldiers able to protect her if things were to go wrong. If she didn't have Knight's love to sustain her, their love would have been a perfect replacement. She still smiled to herself when she thought of that love-filled proposal some days before. She had to admit they were a very cute couple. Tizok taking time out of his speech rehearsals for the meeting with the king well-banded to be with Vital as she dealt with her air sickness, spending hours in her cabin holding her hand while she emptied her stomach into the toilet bowl. It was so romantic. "This armor is really heavy," Vital thought out loud in the hive mind, causing Paige to send off a tsk. "Sorry, guys." "It is okay," Paige comforted her. "Not every Ling can get the hang of using the hive mind without the hive mind body, and you just started using it yourself without being a changeling." Yeah, kindness comforting empty words," Vital grumbled loudly in her makeshift hive mind. "Everyone, please calm down and focus," Tizok reprimanded them. Paige had been a bit hesitant to drag him into the hive mind, but Tizok had done far more than his share to help them get back into Canterlot, and he was putting his entire kingdom on the line for them. The least they could do was allow him to play a greater role in their attempt to find the Magi of Stars, as well as get confirmation that their foe was the Captain General. Paige stared at the compasses Rex had made, still marveling at the skill the Diamond Dog had shown in creating them and other items, such as the necklace she had tucked away in her pack, or the other things he'd demonstrated, like the portable proximity wards he'd carved and set up, with her help for casting the actual spell during their trip south, or that other device he'd made. She gave a slight nicker of amusement at the memory of how they'd been told about it. "So," Xvital had said as they were preparing for their return to Canterlot over a command table with notes that had been they had been making on their plan covering the surface. Tizok had boldly pulled Xvital into the same chair he was sitting in, and after a fierce blush and some playful smacking, Xvital had moved on to the matter at hoof while sitting on Tizok's lap. "Let's recap. We have our weapons, our trackers, our noisemaker," Windbreaker added. Several faces, including Paige's, looked at him, and he shrugged. "When we were camping in the outer Everfree, Rex gave me an alarm that would wake every pony up in case of emergencies. I've been holding on to it ever since." "Ah," Rex nodded. "That little item. I had hoped you still had it on you." "And you think this might be useful?" Nightblade said doubtfully. "The alarm's highest setting is loud enough that if he had needed to use it, they probably would have heard it on the outskirts of Canterlot," Rex explained. "It was designed with the expectation that it could not only awaken large groups, but also startle and disorient those who were attempting to attack them." He looked at Windbreaker. "If you would bring that out, I can demonstrate one of its lower settings." The Griffin nodded and rummaged in his pack for a moment. "Here you go." Taking the device, Rex adjusted something on it. "It's ready, but I would advise that you all cover your ears. Even at its lowest, this is going to be loud." Tizok had waved over a servant and informed them to warn the captain about this sudden testing of the noise. Once everyone had done so, Rex pressed the button with his head turned to the side. Bwaaah! When the noise had faded, everyone lowered their hands, hooves, or talons. Vix Lei had a big smile on her face. "Reminds me of home," she said brightly. "It's just like the foghorns we have set up at the shipyards." "That was the idea," Rex replied a bit loudly, "and as I said, this was the lowest setting. The highest is considerably more so." "I believe you, and you do not have to prove your work, Rex," a somewhat shaken Nightblade replied. Shaking her head, Paige looked at the tracker again and paled a bit. While they were close to the Magi of Stars, she was somewhere in the west, possibly near the old castle grounds. Their foe was a lot closer, and getting closer by the minute. The sooner they got through this little meet and greet between Tizok and King Well-Banded, the better. Once they got past this little publicity stunt between nations, and were certain that Tizok was safe, they could begin a proper search for the Magi of Stars. Paige couldn't help but flinch as her tracker for their foe began to throb, and doing a quick peek through the group's eyes, ignoring their initial protests, she was able to pinpoint that their foe was with the open carriage entourage carrying the king. "It is in there somewhere, with the king," Paige told them. "I don't see the Captain General," Rex said from his perch on top of a building. "All I see are royal guards." "She is the Captain General," Knight thought back. "She is the strongest unicorn, and she fought her way out of Tartarus. If any pony can hide in plain sight, it would be her." "Shh! I am trying to focus here," Xvital and Tizok thought at them at the same time, and Paige couldn't help but smile at that little accident. "I need to focus on doing this just right." "They did it again!" Paige had to resist every instinct inside of her to squee and clap her hooves. This was so adorable and full of love. "Hey, what is this thing I'm feeling?" Vix Lei's question caused Paige to jump a bit, her face blushing as the rest of them chimed in confusion. "Sorry, guys," Paige said, mortified that she had slipped in her love feeding in front of the group. That was what love tasted like, and with how Xvital and Tizok have been acting, I've kinda been binging a tiny bit. Huh, so that is what love tastes like, Rex thought in amazement. Just like mangoes, Knight trailed off in his head, with the rest about to argue on what they tasted. No, not exactly, Paige told them as she watched the carriage pull up to the stage where Tizok, Xvital, and the guards were all standing. It is both sweet-tasting and your favorite thing to eat. Ah, so that is why I am tasting V right now, Tizok thought brazenly, as Xvital began sputtering in the middle of the guards in response. Besides the fact punching you right now would blow our cover, I can't be that angry with you because... Xvital trailed off with a mental blush, telling Paige exactly what the Xvital was tasting. Tizok didn't think anything back, but he was now sporting a massive grin on his face that he carried well. The Xvital Prince King was standing tall and confident on the stage. He had his taupe, T-A-U-P-E, it's a color. I don't recognize it. Outer coat and russet inner coat washed and groomed well, wearing his simplest crown and golden armbands, and holding his ivory scepter with his tail hand. With his silver eyes he looked over the entire crowd, brought out to see the two monarchs greet each other. Still, where was the Captain General? From what they knew, she wasn't one to hide herself. According to Knight's family stories about the mare, she would be the first one on the battlefield to face a foe directly, that her dealing with demons made her deadly direct to anyone she deemed a threat. She should be here, so where was she? Something was very wrong. She watched as the Earth Pony King walked onto the stage and reached to embrace Tizok, and something began to trickle into her head. Saludos, Principe Re Tizok, Well-Banded said, in flawless Berenicio. She began to cast a special spell that would let her see magic auras. And to you as well, King Well-Banded, Tizok said, bowing his head, holding the Earth Pony close to his chest. I hope all is well, he said, patting the pony's side. She felt the spell grow into her eyes. I am, he said, beginning to trail off. Paige finished the spell and opened her eyes. She saw the small magical aura of every pony in front of her, and she let out a gasp as she saw it, their enemy. 6 long, black, tendril-like necks stretched out from its host, and they were staring into each of the group's faces. It was coming straight from Well-Banded's body, his own aura encompassed by the thick black aura and the head that was staring at her, its jaw pulled back to show row after row after row of sharp teeth like daggers, all around the throat as it sneered at her, before moving its lips to form 3 words. I see you. Oh, no, 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 Paige screamed to herself before yelling at the group. It's the king! He is the host, and he knows we're here! However, you and your cohorts are all under arrest for aiding 6 known traitors. Well-Banded snapped, shoving Tizok to the ground and standing on top of the startled Xvital. Guards! Seize them! We need to run now! Paige roared to them. She was already turning around when Rex reached into his vest and brought out his specialized alarm clock and set it to maximum before hitting the button. Close your ears, everybody. I'm going to do this as loud as I can. Blah! Everyone within hearing range promptly dropped to the ground, their hooves covering their ears in pain as an extreme version of a foghorn was sounded, shattering nearby windows. Luckily for them, Rex had prepared for this and given them earplugs, as to not be affected by the sheer volume. Paige was thundering down the street, her heart screaming in her ears. She reached out for memorizing gaze, her own feelings regarding the traitor to be forgotten at the moment. Memorizing. Lamelia? She could feel him jump in surprise, turning his head towards her. Paged her? Not now, she snapped at him, thundering down an alley with the sounds of an angry mob beginning to form. We were wrong. It's King Wellbanded that is the threat, and he knows we are here and is after us. There was a second of delay before memorizing responded. We are in the lower east, moving to the top as fast as we can. I will get Gent's help, and we will be able to help you. Stay safe. Watch your back. We're counting on you. Good luck. Be careful, my queen. Paige nearly stumbled as she heard that blurted across the hive mind, with everyone at the group freezing at her second secret being exposed. Ruby Shell? Memorizing's mental voice roared. Sorry, sir. Sorry, my queen. I mean Lamelia! The nymph stuttered in the hive mind. Paige didn't have the time to console the nymph. She had to escape. That makes sense, Vix Lei thought with flippancy, causing Paige to blink. Yeah, not that surprised, Windbreaker thought, with everyone else chiming in. Doesn't change who she is, guys, Knight thought out with a grunt. Paige couldn't believe or deal with this right now, as she heard several guards right behind her. Turning the corner, Paige saw a huge gathering of her changelings, and she finally froze in her running. She knew she hadn't been the best queen. For Princess's sake, she had planned to be the last queen of the hive, and refused to ever become intimate and produce an heir. All of her changelings always asked her if she would change her mind, and she knew that some of her changelings were not happy with her seemingly selfish desires to stop the horrible treatment of her hive by ending her hive. They looked at her, and in unison the majority transformed into her unicorn form, while some became Pegasi, and all of them burst out in every direction. Paige turned back into her normal self as the guards stormed the place. She smiled to herself. Thanks to their kindness, she could escape. Part 2. Nightblade. Shaking his head from the ringing of that clock, and learning about Paige's other secret, Knight saw that a lot of the royal and cadenza guards were beginning to spill out towards where the rest of the group was heading. That was not going to happen. Tossing the cloak to the side as well as his glasses, Knight began to use his reputation for some good. Ah! The air was split by a loud, violent, bull-like bellowing as he charged a group of guards, drawing both sword and sheath as he began swinging the two, somehow managing to avoid dealing out fatal blows this time. Yet his frenzy was sufficient to ward off those who came too close to him, and he could hear at least one voice shouting, "He's gone berserk!" That was exactly the reaction he was hoping for, as he disarmed more and more guards, and drew more attention to himself. Wait a minute, that's Knight! Knight paused mid-swing as he heard and saw regal pants in front of him. My word, it is you! Regal paused to look him over. What happened? Is everything they're saying about you true? Kinda, Knight said as he leaped over the unicorn to punch down a guard while he parried another guard with his sheath. We're not the true threat here, and we're trying to save Equestria and the world. He let out a hiss of frustration as a couple of unicorn royal guards were trying to use their magic to steal his sword and sheath. That was one of the lowest tricks a unicorn could do in a fight, and Knight had little options to fight it. He was properly surprised when Regal used his shoulder to knock down one of the guards, while blasting the other with his magic. The noble unicorn then turned to his stunned-looking guards and said, I know this looks I know this looks, but I know this pony. That's the exact words here. Regal gestured to him. He may be one of the surliest jerks that ever existed, but he wouldn't attack unless it is absolutely necessary. Knight saw some of the cadenza guards share uneasy looks, while the royal guards just seemed furious. The Captain General once told me that we have to move past the pony and be the guard to protect every pony. And right now, my instincts are telling me that he is doing his best to save lives. That seemed to do the trick, as the cadenza guards turned around and created a wall between Knight and the royal guards. "Go, Knight, we'll hold them back," Regal said, snapping up a shield as the royal guards tried to press inwards. Nightblade nodded. "I won't forget this." "Me neither," Regal said as he fired a quick bolt at one of the royal guards trying to press the attack. "Go!" Nodding, Nightblade turned and fled, grateful for the loyalty of trust that Regal placed in him. Part 3. Windbreaker. Windbreaker had dropped the broom as soon as he heard Paige yell at them to run, wincing as he heard that noisemaker go off. He was certain several of his bottles broke from it going off, judging by all the broken windows and what Paige and that changeling revealed just caused Windbreaker's eyes to widen a bit before realizing how obvious it was, and told her such. How Paige managed to run and think-talk at the same time was beyond him. Must be a changeling thing. Shaking his head, he turned around the corner, only to smash into some griffin. "Windy, is that you?" Of all the griffins he had to run into, why did it have to be his old bully from the hatchery, Diamondback? The large griffin gripped him on the shoulder and lifted him up in the air a tiny bit. "By the goddesses, it is you! What in Tartarus is going on?" "Diamond, look," Windbreaker said as he heard the guards coming up behind them. "Me and my group are on the right side, and I can't get caught right now." Diamondback looked at him and suddenly threw him into a doorway and slammed it shut on him. Windbreaker was about to yell at him for this when Diamondback suddenly started to shout. Windbreaker froze at this and stiffened as he heard other voices right outside his door. "Citizen, have you seen a griffin with sleek gray plumage and a reddish-gold coat, one blue eye and one gold eye?" "Yeah, I saw him," Diamondback sneered. "The jerk just ran past me and shoved me into the wall. He went that way." "Equestria thanks you," another voice said, before the sound of departing, clattering hooves. Before there was the sound of departing, clattering hooves. Windbreaker waited for the hooves to vanish completely when the door was opened and Diamondback pulled him out. Windbreaker stared up at him and tried to say something. "Diamond, you are a lot of things, Windy, but you're not one to lie, ever," Diamondback said sternly. "If you say the sky is green, then my eyesight has to be broken. If you say you need to get past the guards, I believe you." Windbreaker was touched by this. He never thought that his old bully would be this. "Also, I'd never forgive myself if I let this chance pass by again," Diamondback said, before grabbing Windbreaker's neck and pulling him into a powerful kiss. "Oh, what? Diamondback was kissing him!" After far too long, Diamondback broke the kiss off and looked down at him with a smile. "I've wanted to do that for so long, Windy," he said, as he leaned down to nuzzle him, Windbreaker too startled to actually move. "Be safe, okay?" Windbreaker simply nodded his head as he put one talon in front of a paw and continued to escape, replaying everything his bully had done with this new revelation. Part 4. Vix Lei. Vix Lei huffed steadily as she ran down one of the streets of Canterlot. Even after Paige had given the order to run, the Minotaur had lingered for just a minute or so, long enough to catch Nightblade's bellowing as he charged into battle. She shook her head in amusement. If she hadn't seen him throw back his head as he let out that noise, she'd have sworn it came from a male tar. Still, she knew she had to get as far away from the Pony King, their enemy, she reminded herself, as possible. Turning, she ducked down one street, but she could still hear some of the guards yelling right behind her. So she kept going. And going. And going. Finally, when she had run far enough that she could see that she'd finally lost the guards, she heaved a sigh of relief and stepped around a corner into what looked like an alley. And smacked right into some tar who was very, very large.
"Oof," the figure grunted as they stepped back. "Hey, watch where you're—" Suddenly they stopped and gasped in recognition. "Vix Lei?" Vix Lei's own eyes widened as she finally took in the view. "Heracles? Big sis!" the other Minotaur exclaimed. "How are ya?" He turned around. "Hey, little bro, why didn't you tell me she was the one we were waiting here for?" "Why ruin the surprise?" another voice answered. Stepping out of the shadows, the slightly smaller Minotaur adjusted his tie. "Good to see you again, Vix Lei." "Good to see you too, Argus," Vix Lei managed. "What? How? Why are you two here?" "We were invited," another Minotaur stated as he also stepped out of the shadows. "Not long after your little escapade with that XJ6, King Wellbanded contacted the embassy and asked that they call in Father and some of the other shipmasters for a conference to discuss expanding Equestria's air force. But after what happened, he suspected something might be up, so he chose the three of us to accompany him. Myself for diplomatic expertise, Heracles for his muscles, and Argus because of his eye for detail." "Ah, you always know how to flatter a tar. Eusebios," Heracles teased his younger brother as he flexed an arm. "But seriously, how are you, sis? Besides being one of Equestria's most wanted, that is." "Well, there have been a few rough patches, but in general I've had a blast," Vix Lei admitted. Suddenly there was a loud boom a few blocks away, and Argus sighed. "Don't worry, they won't make it this far over," he said. "I can see them, and they should be running into some other trouble right—" Just then there was a loud crash. "Now," Argus concluded, "I see the guards haven't improved their ability to avoid obstacles the size of buildings since they tried and failed to capture you last time." Vix Lei covered her face. "So you did see that newspaper article?" she moaned. "Saw it? I've got it framed and hanging on my wall," Heracles chuckled. "Seriously, sis, I know comedy's your thing, even if some of it's not that great, but that time... well, that time you were funny without even trying." Vix Lei gave him a dirty look, but then smiled. "Yeah, I've been learning," she said, toned down the stuff that gets on people's nerves, and getting back to what tars and ponies and every other species really thinks is funny. "Knew you could do it, big sis," Heracles said, winking at her. "So what's all this mess with the guards chasing you about, anyway?" "I'm one of a group of 6 who've been chosen to save the world," Vix Lei said with a shrug. "Starting by dealing with that freaky thing possessing the Pony King." The three brothers exchanged glances. "You're not joking about this, are you?" Eusebios asked hesitantly. "Not this time," Vix Lei told him. "Well, that certainly explains why Dad was getting an uneasy feeling around him the other day," Heracles said, "and why he and the other shipmasters are holed up in the embassy for a private meeting now." "Then he's safe?" Vix Lei asked. "Absolutely. Our ancestors built that embassy personally. It's the most fortified building in all of Canterlot, next to the castle at the very top," Eusebios said. "Normally, I'd recommend taking you back until this whole mess is over, but since you're needed out here, I wish you good luck." He stepped back. "Watch the skies," Argus added. "And give him a couple of good whacks for me," Heracles said, then rummaged around in his pack for a moment, coming up with something. "Give him a couple of good whacks while you're at it," He held out a pair of candles. "How long have you been carrying those?" Vix Lei demanded, a smirk on her face. "Long enough," Heracles answered, smirking back. "I've got more stuff, too. You never know what you'll need or when you'll need 'em." Vix Lei clasped her hands together. "I have taught you well, big little brother. The laughter is strong in you." "And don't you forget it," Heracles told her with a grin. "Never," Vix Lei replied. "Now, as much as I'd love to stick around and chat, you have important business to attend to," Eusebius said. He eyed her critically, looking straight at her hammer straps that went across her chest. "Start by putting on a shirt again, would you? Mother may not be back in Ledra. Oh, Mother may be back in Ledra with the rest of our brothers, but she saw the chase photos too, and she's not happy about you running around without a top like you were a sailor. In fact, if Father hadn't persuaded her to stay home at Baltzeros Marina, if Father hadn't persuaded her to stay at home with Baltzeros, Marinos, Paihus, and Yanni so she could ride herd on the rest of his work crew, she'd be tanning your hide over it. Again." Vix Lei groaned, so not looking forward to the horror that was one of her mom's lectures. "Now I really wish I'd kept the outfit from that other world when we got back here." "Other world?" Heracles looked at her curiously. "Long story. I promise I'll explain when this is all over," Vix Lei told him. "But now I really do need to get going." "Looking forward to it then, big sis. And the story of how you kicked this bad guy's butt," Heracles grinned. "The same goes for me," Argus put in. Eusebius nodded. "And myself. Now go, sister. Make our family proud." Vix Lei threw him a salute, then disappeared further down the alley, hopping over a tall fence at the far end. The three brothers, watching her go, smiled. "Gods be with you, sis," Heracles whispered. "Gods be with you." Part 5. Rex. On the positive side, Rex thought to himself as he ducked under a hanging line, "At least we are not up against one of the strongest unicorns in living history." On the negative side, that monster is bad enough even without the powers of a dumb Suluti. He had managed to get a great deal further away from the initial meeting area in a short time, while staying in the west, following his compass towards the Magi of Stars. He could only hope the others made it to her as well. Suddenly, his ears twitched as he detected a faint movement behind him, and ducked off to one side, burrowing under a pile of junk that had been swept off the streets. Just a minute later, he heard footsteps. "Me snarl certain some dog was here," a voice reported. "And I'm certain you're right," another voice replied, causing Rex's blood to run cold and hackles to stand up on the back of his neck. There was a sniffing sound. "Some dog is here, and I know that scent like the back of my paw." "You Jeb smelling yourself?" the first voice asked in a confused tone, before letting out a "Yipe!" as there was a loud smacking noise. "You snarl are an idiot, and that's saying something," the second voice grunted. "Now, I know he's here somewhere." And that's when a familiar face poked its way into Rex's hiding spot. "Hello, Rex," the other diamond dog said. "Long time no see." Rex sighed. "Hello, Jeb," he said. "I suppose there's no point in hiding anymore." "You got that right," Jeb said, before pulling back so Rex could uncover himself. Once he had a clear view, he looked around. "Snarl, Slash, Slug, and Scorn," he said quietly, recognizing each of the other 4 diamond dogs accompanying his former pack leader, who had backed away and smoothed his short red coat. "I'm surprised to see you all up here." "Me Slug surprised you not making tracks," the grouchiest diamond dog reported. A tan individual with a broad, well-shaped face stated. "You made enough running from our pack last time."
I did not run, Rex replied quietly. I may have been exiled, but I did so with dignity. Another diamond dog, this one much taller, with a square jaw and a solid black coat, snorted. Me scorn say, Enough, Jeb boomed, cutting him off. Rex, we aren't in the tunnels, so technically I got no right to pursue you. But with recent events, I have to wonder. He leaned in closely. Rumors are saying that you and some others are wanted for plotting regicide. That is an utter falsehood, spread by the creature possessing Equestria's king, Rex replied. Admittedly, it is our enemy, but we bear no ill will against King Wellbanded himself. Just the thing controlling him. The 5 diamond dogs reacted with instant surprise, and began muttering amongst themselves. Me snarl not heard of this, the shortest and skinniest of them said, sticking his pointed face in Rex's direction. When this happened? Several weeks ago, Jeb said. Where have you been? Underground? He paused. Oh, wait. The last diamond dog, who was black and tan with a thick coat, let out a bellowing laugh. Me slash love it when you say things like that. Jeb snorted. So, you're up against the king because he's possessed, you say? I am, Rex replied. Now, if you will excuse me, I must go. My new pack and I have somewhere we need to be, and the fate of all Equestria is at stake. Stake? Where? Slug shouted. Jeb smacked him. Shut your yap, you bonehead, he told the other diamond dog, before turning back to Rex. The fate of all Equestria. Well, if that's the case, you're gonna need some help. And what better help than the biggest and best distraction we can come up with? And what might that be? Rex asked. Here. Jeb pulled a jar from his vest. We traded some stuff for this, and we've got a fair amount of it stashed away. With this flaming gel and some of the explosives we got, we can make a big enough flame and boom to make even Rufus happy. Should be a suitable distraction to draw all the guards away, isn't it? That's very generous of you, Rex managed. I don't know what to say. Me scorn say you could say thank you, the tallest diamond dog contributed. Rex smiled. Thank you, he said. All of you. Part 6. Xvital. She had let out a hiss as the guards around her created a barrier between her and Tizok, with that creature standing on her tizzy. Senora, tienes que correr, a guard snapped at her as they tried to push back the royal guards to get to Tizok's side, as Bandit was quickly being aided in securing her husband to be made in handcuff. No, necesito ayudar a Tizok, she snapped back, shifting on her feet as she slipped on her knuckle-busters and drew her knife. She could see the guards drag him away, with her special someone bound and cuffed. Nos ordino que nos aseguramos de que está a salvo, señora, the guard said, as he raised a shield to block a sword swing. Ahora corre! Corre para que puedas luchar otro día. Equestria no se saldrá con esto. I will be safe, Xvital. They cannot physically harm me without setting the world against them, Tizok told her through their mind-shared thing. Xvital, please, get out while you still can. With a snarl, Xvital had no choice but to turn her back and race towards the airship. As much as she might hate airships, it was still sovereign territory of their lands, and it would be a true declaration of war if they tried to board the ship and take her away. As she ran, a small group of Tizok's guards broke off and formed a circle around her. It was a pointless gesture, as the royal guards pounced on the broken army formation, with the unicorns picking off her guards one by one. Tossing her borrowed guard armor at the royal guards as a means of distraction, as well as to lighten her load, she knew all she had to do was turn the corner and she'd be say, "Hello, element." well, Bandit said to her, smiling far too widely for any creature, "You're coming with me." He, or it, then spun around and kicked her in the face, knocking her out. Part 7. Gentle Step. Gentle Step was in the middle of a chaotic conference room, with her guards running around to report the latest news coming in from the city, and it was taking her incredible resolve not to show any sign of frustration at her inability to leave the room. She hated being stuck in her office while her city was under siege from varied enemies. Not only were the traitorous Six back in Canterlot, the fact that the Xvitals had betrayed almost 1,000 years of trust and loyalty between the two nations by supporting a government that were aligned. By supporting a group that were aligned to kill their king and topple their government. She remembered everything she'd read about Tizak, a clear connection to Xvital, as they were once about to marry before the forgery-based con artist had left on their wedding day. It was odd she had left the wedding ring behind, as it was worth a medium-sized fortune. Gentle Step frowned to herself. A number of things were off about this entire case, and they were bothering her, as things did not add up to a proper answer. There must be something she was missing. Her ear flicked as she heard the clatter of hooves outside her office, and she had half drawn both Justice and Protector when her door exploded open to reveal her captain, Mesmerizing Gaze, running inside. "Sir, the Traitor Six have been framed by an entity that is possessing the king due to the fact that the 6 of them are the only ones capable of defeating it." "Oh," he said in a clear voice, with all of her guards staring open-mouthed at him. It took her a second to process what he said, but she had known Mems since they were foals, and he had never once lied to her about anything, so she was convinced that this was actually the situation. "Understood." "Changeling!" Clear Vision shouted, the unicorn mare's horn glowing as she prepared a spell. "Stand down," she barked at the guard before turning to her captain. "Do you know where the 6 are?" "I have a—" "Sir, that is a changeling in guard armor!" Clear Vision protested, with the other guards beginning to back away, as Gentle noticeably narrowed her eyes and snorted. "Mesmerizing Gaze is one of the 6 captains of Canterlot, and is the captain of the Secret Protectors. You will show him proper respect," Gentle Step informed the mare, before turning back to Mesmerizing Gaze. "Do you know where any of them are currently located?" "Yes." Mesmerizing Gaze tilted his long muzzle upwards, with his shimmering blue eyes narrowed to a slant. "In the gym room." Gentle Step accepted this, and teleported every pony in the room to the door that led to the room. Instantly, she could see the security features of the room were activated, and she frowned at this. Only if the capital was invaded were they to be activated, and only as a means of last resort to save the royal family by teleporting the entire room to a random location even she wasn't privileged to know. Even more troubling, she could see the king standing up in the middle of the room, over several individuals. He had been in the middle of West Canterlot, according to her latest reports, and there was no possible way for him to have traversed the distance that quickly. Seeing that Mesmerizing Gaze was proven correct about the king not being himself, she turned to her guards and said to them, "Send messages to each of the captains to be on high alert. Activation of the Shining Armor Shield may be imminent. I want a team of our best enchantment breakers here now to open these doors, and the janitorial staff that are assigned to this room." "Sir?" one of her guards asked, as the rest did as she ordered. "They have to clean the room on a regular basis, and you cannot honestly tell me that there is no pony that would not try to show their special sum pony this view. They would need to take the keys to this office and must know how to deactivate the protection spells in case something went wrong. Understood, sir, the guard saluted her, leaving her alone with just a small squad of guards and mems, leaving them alone to look into the rue. Gents? Mesmerizing hissed, his old full-hood nickname for her, a sign and signal that something was deadly wrong. Vision of pure sight, the 10th level, now. She did as she was told and froze. She could see the blinding pure light that Sweet Surprise reported coming from the stirring individuals on the ground, as well as the swirling dark mass that was inhabiting her king. But it was the aura of the dark mass that caused her to pause, which made her guards let out small snorts of worry and fear. "It's not demonic," she said in a hushed, awed tone. "It's divine." Alright, that is the end of chapter 40. It's not chapter 48. It's chapter 43, I want to say 4. Chapter 44. Alright. Step 1, Spanish! Here we go. This is the last chapter with Spanish in it, by the way. We're getting close to the end of the story. There's a few more chapters left, but none have Spanish. King Wilbrand had introduced, "Greetings, Prince King Tizak." That makes sense. Guard tells Xvital, "Ma'am, you have to run." Yeah, that makes sense. Xvital, "No, I need to help Tizak." I understood that one in context the first time. Necessito, I knew was necessity or need. Help, Aeldor. I didn't know that one, but context made that one pretty easy. Could have been aid or whatever. Then again, English has more words than Spanish in some aspects. Has more words. English is a very big language. It's got lots of synonyms to play around with. So, direct translations can get a little fuzzy with any two languages, because they're not going to have the exact same when they have more words and when they have less. Greek has more words than English in some places. I doubt in every place, but I know that in some. It's just, different languages have different details. Anyway, guard responds, "He ordered us to make sure you are safe, ma'am. Now run. Run so you can fight another day. Equestria will not get away with this." I kind of hope Equestria as a whole does get away with this. I'm gonna be honest. Alright, that was the Spanish. Now there were... yes, I remember what I was gonna say. Some of these people from before coming and helping were touching and heartwarming, and I was great, and they were great. And some of them strained my suspension of disbelief. Like the pack. Immediately stopping everything and helping him. I could see him convincing them not to stop him. This just seemed a bit much. Also, Diamondback came out of nowhere. Not specifically his helping in this case, just the fact he was here at all. I liked the scene with Regal and the one with the changelings. The guards were obviously going to be there. Nothing special there, good or bad. Vix Lei's family was well done, though I was a little surprised they were here. It worked. That was good. Ah, yes, and I totally called it that Gentle Step was not the villain. I think I even mentioned in one of my previous commentaries, and I'm not going to go back and listen to them all to double check, that I thought a likely choice was that it was the monarch above her, which is exactly what happened. I wasn't sure. I really wasn't sure. But, Gentle Step and the monarch were both prime suspects. But Gentle Step just didn't feel right. I felt that from the parts we have in her mind, she didn't really act like someone who's being possessed, at least in my opinion. I've never dealt with possession, obviously. Anyway, the king, we literally have seen nothing of him so far, except when we are knowing we're from the point of view of the host. So it was a little harder to get a reading on him, given that he wasn't even a character really until this chapter. Now we know it's the king. Although I did suspect it was specifically the king when the king walked out, but Gentle Step was nowhere to be seen. That was also when I was certain it wasn't Gentle Step, because they're right, I got this even before they did, out loud at least. There is no way Gentle Step would be hiding at this point. She's the strongest, that does not mean she's the stealthiest. She has never shown any tendency or skill towards stealth. That's quite not what she does. She might be capable, I'll believe it, but she doesn't. She has, she's quite... I got the cord caught. Headphones fell off. Anyway, yeah, that, was there something else I was gonna say? Oh, ooh, they got Vittle. That's not good. Hopefully it won't just pop her head off quick while she's down, because, that's what I would do if I were the evil shadow monster, unless it has a plan for her, where it needs her for something. Kill her. As far as I can tell, it's the smart move to make. I really hope that either it's not smart, or it wants to gloat too hard, or it has some random evil plan that won't come to fruition that it needs her for. Because otherwise, Vittle's gonna die. And that would be sad and difficult for our heroes. So, I hope Vittle doesn't die. I don't think this next thing is going to come up, but I am going to mention it. I was reading this, I noticed it the second time around. She promises she will explain when this is all over, and for some reason that made me think, that seems like the sort of line that would be coming back really strong if she does not ever make it to when this is all over. Hopefully that doesn't come up, and I'm not even saying it will. It doesn't seem terribly likely. I think that at least most of the main six, or the traitorous six, are going to live through this story. But I don't know for sure. We'll see. We will see. Thank you for listening. Goodbye. Have a pleasant time. Feel free to like or subscribe. I appreciate that. Also, feel free to comment on this, or comment on the chapter itself here on FimFiction or on YouTube. You know, both me and the author seem to like comments. That's pretty common in a lot of people, actually. So, good time out there. Bye, everyone. I just realized something. Individuals on the ground with the glowing lights. More than one. Oh, that could be a problem. I thought they only had Vittle. We'll have to find out next chapter, which I still haven't read. I'm just... oh dear. That could be bad. Unless, of course, it's just one light coming from multiple individuals, because he's got Vittle and Tizok. Huh. Honestly, I could see this going either way. We'll find out. I was going to say tomorrow, and then I realized that's probably actually correct. At this rate, I should have another one up tomorrow. Yay! Hold on. Oh, no. This is my first I've done today. I was confused there for a minute, because this is the second recording I've done for it because of this thing I remembered during the editing process. Or rather, noticed during the editing process. I hadn't caught it the first or second time round. Anyway,
That is all. Goodbye!